The Titans were the team that beat the Bills. Do you think this loss, I mean, after going through COVID protocol, not being able to practice, getting caught practicing, NFL ultimately wanting to, discipline them, did this game against the Bills, did this win show you guys that they're a team that are legitimate contenders that can possibly compete for a Super Bowl spot?
Super Bowl's a stretch.
I mean, last year AFC Championship.
Granted,
so that would be the next step.
But all right, let me say this, because I like what you said before. This was a keep your eyes open game. Like, all right, spotlights on the Titans. They just beat the Bills. All right, let's look. But this Super Bowl,
I like the Titans a lot. I think it
just depends where they play.
They're going to be in it every week. Mike Vrabel, I love him as a head coach. I think that he's going to get his guys ready every single week, and I think that he is a huge reason why they made it as far as they did last year, and that's why I won't count them out. I just don't know if when it comes down to a Kansas City, maybe they beat Baltimore last year, so I can't even say Baltimore. But a Kansas City, I just don't know. 9 times out of 10, I'm taking the Chiefs in that matchup.
It's 9, 10 times out of 10.
I don't know. If they're facing 10 times, I might pick the Titans 3.
I wouldn't pick them.
Really?
Yeah, I wouldn't pick the Chiefs to beat them every single time.
If
I said 9.
If we're at Vegas and I'm betting, I'm gonna pick the Chiefs 10 times. Just off the simple fact that I'm just.
That's not even a knock on the Titans.
It's not a knock on the Titans. The Chiefs are just really that good, and I would pick the Chiefs 10. I would pick the Chiefs 10 times out of 10 on a lot of teams though. So that's not a knock on the Titans.
The good thing for the Titans though, their schedule is very easy.
Shout it out.
I'll literally run through the whole schedule. The Texans, easy game. The Steelers is a tough one, but then they have the Bengals. I know you're not going to like this, but the Bears, who right now I just don't think are that strong of an opponent. Plus, we don't even know who's going to be playing quarterback for them at that point in time. Are they going to flip back to Mitch? Or are they going to stay with Nick Foles?
They're staying with Nick Foles. Nick Foles is
they're going to stay with Nick Foles.
Then they got the Colts, who I'll prompt our later topic. I do not believe in Phillip Rivers whatsoever at this point. So I think that's an easy game. Then they got the Ravens, a tough one. But then they got the Colts again.
Browns.
The Browns is a tough one. But then they finish with the Jaguars, the Lions, then the Packers, but then the Texans. So they have a lot of winnable games there. They have 3 or 4 difficult games sprinkled in that schedule and a bunch of games they really should have no problem with.
The Titans are 4-0. We all know that they didn't have a hard schedule. They beat the Jaguars, Broncos, Vikings, and now the Bills. They're 6th in offense and they're 9th in defense in points allowed. And the amazing part about that stat being 9th in defense is that they're 29th in yards allowed. So they almost allow the most yards in the NFL, but they don't let teams score.
They didn't play anybody yet.
But they don't let teams score. I mean, even if they didn't play anybody and they allowed a lot of yards to the Jaguars, to the Broncos, to the Vikings, but they didn't allow these teams to score. And I feel like that's an amazing stat. And Ryan Tannehill is playing like an elite quarterback right now. Ryan Tannehill to Manahill. I was high on him last year. I said the Titans were going to make the playoffs last year. I said Tannehill was going to lead them there. I love Ryan Tannehill. Right now he has 9 touchdowns,
He's playing great
1 interception. Football. He has a 110 QB rating, 84 QBR, the highest of his career, and he's 11-3 since starting with Tennessee. He's really shifted their culture, and I think the Titans, if they can fix their defense, which is a huge possibility, then they can possibly upset one of the top teams just like they did last year, upsetting the Ravens. The next step for them is going to the Super Bowl. They made the AFC Championship last year. This Tennessee Titans team reminds me of the 2009 Jets with the better quarterback and not an elite defense. A team that exceeded expectations and made the AFC Championship. And in 2010, we know the Jets made the AFC Championship and we're this close to going to the Super Bowl. I think the Titans, this is a year that they either get over the hump or they fall short once again.
I'm so sick.
In an AFC Championship.
I'm so sick of you milking those 2 AFC Championship things.
Hey, get off our back. It's the only thing we have.
I mean,
I wonder what it is though that was holding Ryan Tannehill back in Miami, that he then got away from and became so successful in Tennessee.
He was injured a lot.
Then he tears ACL twice.
Is that what it is? I've been
I mean,
really,
it was Adam Gase. We know that.
Yeah.
But
That's what I was getting at. I was hoping somebody would finish the sentence. But I've been really impressed with him. He threw for 195 against the Bills, but essentially he's thrown for 200 yards in every game they've played. And he's not doing it in any eye-popping way. He's not playing like a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen or a Russell Wilson where he's going to be in the MVP conversation, but he is doing everything they need him to do to win football games. And Derrick Henry hasn't even been having as good of a season as he had last year. So Tannehill's been picking up a little bit of the slack without A.J. Brown, who's their best receiver. So I've been really impressed with this offense.
and I think Adam Humphries was out too.
Yeah. And I can
Corey Davis was out too.
they've been like musical chairs with the receivers or targets even in general, because I think Jonnu Smith missed the game also. But and then you, on top of that, you take in the fact that they've been dealing with the COVID situation. It's been impressive that they've been able to stay 4-0, and I think you're right. Although I don't think they're the best team in the league, like you mentioned, the Jets in 2009, they were never the best team in the league. And in a lot of games that they went into, they weren't favored, but you knew whatever game they went into, it was going to be a dogfight. They were going to be prepared, and they weren't going to get embarrassed. So that's what I see them as. Any day of the week, I'm not going to bet against them, but when it comes to teams like the Chiefs, and it's a very short list, but a team like the Chiefs,
it's only the Chiefs.
Exactly. How are they going to get past them?
Last year they were up in the playoffs.
So was the Texans.
Everybody was up on
like,
the
come
Chiefs.
on.
But the Titans had a better chance than the Texans. The Titans accumulated that lead in a better fashion.
I mean, the defensive thing, you were right. They do have to step up the defense. I just look at the AFC as, besides the Chiefs, I think every top team can honestly beat anybody. So I think it's really just going to come down to who's ready to play. But letting the Jaguars and the Vikings score 30 on you is not going to help you in any way. But I don't know. It's just.
Well, then again, holding the Bills to 16 is impressive.
Yeah, it's just tough with them. It's just so tough with them because they held the Broncos to 14. Granted, the Broncos.
But that was when they were healthy too.
Yeah,
They
the
had
Broncos
Drew
are
Lock,
like
they had
they're good. Then the Jaguars pour 30 on them. Then the Vikings pour 30 on them. Then they held the Bills to 16. So it's like what I see is inconsistency on the defensive end. And if they become more consistent, then maybe they can knock off the Chiefs. Maybe. But I think in the end it's going to come down to what QBs, who's going to outplay each other. And I will always pick Patrick Mahomes over Ryan Tannehill.
I think the part that I least like about the Titans is that we are not going to see them tested over a stretch of their schedule this season. Like every time they play a tough game, I feel like they get a breath of fresh air the next week. Whereas we just looked at the Bills' schedule. In the next 5 weeks, we're going to see who they are. I don't feel like we have that in the Titans' schedule.
I think we do. We got Steelers, Bengals, Bears, Colts, Ravens.
The
You
thing
could
about
make
the
an
Titans,
argument, but I don't think that the Bengals and the Colts are that. Maybe the Colts. You could make
I
an
think
argument.
just because if it's a division game is always
That's
going to be
fair.
tough. And
You could make an argument for that. Bears, Colts, Ravens, Colts,
Browns
stretch.
that would be the best stretch for them. And after that, it's pretty.
the thing about the Titans is that they could be in any single game because they rely so heavily on running the ball. But Tannehill has even shown that he can be clutch and he can win games as well. I mean, he had a lot of game-winning drives last season alone.
And I'll tell you what, if they get up early, you are in trouble. Because then all they got to do is pull out the halfback dive and run the clock down.
And they'll definitely do it. I think the Titans are a serious contender because outside of the Chiefs, I think you put the Titans as the second best team in the AFC.
Yeah. And you look at what they did to the Ravens last year. The way they won that game was getting up early and holding the lead. And the Ravens weren't accustomed to that because they had been so used to getting up by a touchdown or two and running the ball. Right. And they got a taste of their own medicine from the Titans, and it worked to perfection. And you mentioned it. Even when they got down, they could claw their way back in games. Tannehill played really well in clutch situations. So
I agree. I think these next couple weeks are really to tell us who's the second best team in the league for them and the Bills.